Spider-Man is a character that is ultimately loved by all. With the character as amazing as this anthropomorphic arachnid, it's only fitting that there should be a new animated series to showcase just how spectacular he really is. But in the seemingly unlimited amount of Spider-Man shows, we've recently received a new one that is moved into the neighborhood. And that means it's time to unravel the web that is your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. In case you didn't know, I'm Inviso Bill, and this is Medianalysis. Here we go. The show starts off with Doctor Strange fighting an interdimensional monster of sorts on Peter's first day of school. However, this is all just to show us the spider that fights him and gives him his powers. A few months later, and Peter is still running late for class, but now he has a few new tricks, or rather webs, up his sleeve. For some reason, these criminals decide to livestream their assault, robbery, and battery on not Twitch, but end up on the losing end of this fight. After embarrassing himself in front of his ex-babysitter, Peter cuts class to stop a criminal duo, but even though he can catch a van, he can't seem to catch a break, as his crush is now going out with the captain of the football team. However, it seems that even the star player isn't as celebrated in his own life outside of school. After stopping yet another criminal and doing some dumpster diving, Peter heads home where he meets an unexpected guest at his house. So it turns out that the man in his house is Norman Osborn, and just like Peter, he is also something of a scientist himself. And because he sees such promise in Peter, he even offers him a job at Oscorp, a job he can't help but tell everyone about. But honestly, I don't blame him. Once he makes it there, he starts telling his new coworkers that he has a tendency to be late to things, and surprise surprise, he ends up not getting chosen for the robotics program he wanted. After doing his time for his first day, he's feeling pretty fired up once he gets invited to a party. So he proceeds to get more fired up as a result. Following a heated battle with a hot-headed supervillain, Peter thinks he's about to get fired by Norman Osborn, but instead, he is put in the hot seat once Norman reveals that he knows that Peter is Spider-Man. After getting his secret minorly exposed, Peter has dinner with Norman Osborn as they discuss how grateful he is for Spider-Man saving his son's life a few weeks ago. But more than that, he wants to help Peter upgrade his tech and his suit so that he can become an even better Spider-Man for the city. But Peter wants to do it on his own so that there is no one who can be traced back to Spider-Man or have their lives put at risk due to his actions. But it seems that Spider-Man isn't the only one with potential financial backers in his corner, as a duo of delinquents are shown paying for their new gear shortly after this. And speaking of delinquents, it turns out that Lonnie Lincoln's little brother was caught by police after vandalizing a building with a few other boys in a gang. After getting some help from his new guy in the chair to defeat the Not Flash and Edward Scissorhands, Peter decides to strike a deal with Osborn, while Lonnie strikes a deal with the gang leader in order to keep his kid brother off the streets by taking his place in the 110th gang, led by Big Donovan.
That's not a real name.
After giving a very terrible presentation, Peter goes to see Norman, and the two of them test a few new Spider-Man costumes before finally settling on this one. While all this testing is going on, however, Lonnie gets sent on a special errand by the gang leader, Big Don, that serves for nothing more than a blackmail trip. Speaking of trips, these Eastern European-sounding goons go on a joyride police chase before one of them bails out, while the others are caught. After saving a few people from a fiery car crash scene, Peter celebrates a bit too loud and leaks his secret identity. Again. So it turns out that the one who is providing all of the supervillains with their weapons and tech is Dr. Octavius, who is only doing this so that he can eventually become a greater name in the scientific field than Tony Stark, Bruce Banner, and most of all, Norman Osborn, who now has decided to have his son, Harry, join Team Spider-Man and help Peter when he himself has to do work things and run an entire billion-dollar company. But speaking of companies, Lonnie's association with Bad Company is edging closer and closer to ruining his football career, with Donovan moving him around like a pawn with no respect for his time, as tensions between the two rival gangs begin to reach a boiling point. This leads to a gang fight between the two, and Lonnie gets stabbed in the arm while trying to save Donovan. However, while he was initially in the gang to keep his brother out, it now seems that Alonzo Thompson Lincoln is embracing the thug life and his new nickname, Tombstone. After the events of the gang fight, and with Lonnie missing so many classes and practices, his coach kicks him off the team, and when his girlfriend, Pearl, tries to get answers out of him, he brushes her off and leaves the school. After Lonnie is done arguing with his brother and getting chased by a car, we then see Spider-Man lose a fight to Daredevil, who broke into Osborn's office before telling Peter that Osborn is hiding something. Norman tells Peter that he thinks Octavius hired Daredevil to collect the files on him, and that he is using repurposed Oscorp tech to make supervillains. After Harry falls for the oldest trick in the book, Nico learns the truth about Spider-Man, and this really is just the worst kept secret in the world, isn't it? Peter and Norman work together to find the new weapon that Octavius built, but before he can confront it, Harry and Nico discuss forgiving Peter for lying to her. When that doesn't work, he just offers to teach her how to drive, and this is a plan that works really well for some reason. During this, Pearl makes her way into the gang's hideout and finds Lonnie, but unfortunately for her, so does the leader of the other rival gang. Spider-Man fights the leader of the Scorpion gang, the Scorpion, and to my surprise, actually loses this fight with his life barely hanging by a thread. He has to get saved by the Goblin Glider in order to make it out alive, and even then, it was more of a defeated retreat than a real victory. After going to the hospital for the injuries he sustained from his battle with Scorpion, Peter starts to wonder if he is truly up to the task of being Spider-Man, especially when his opponent had such an overwhelming advantage over him in their last encounter. While farming XP on Not Minecraft, Octavius gets swatted, but instead of being arrested, his mechanical arms dispose of the SWAT team that was sent to apprehend him as he makes off with his money. That is, until Iron Man shows up and he just gives up immediately. I don't even blame him, I would do the same thing. Later on, Peter and Pearl try to finish up their science project, but when Lonnie drops by unexpectedly, Pearl tells him not to go back to the gang and he ignores her request. Then Peter tells him not to go and he ignores his request too. And I guess he just decided not to do the homework with Pearl or something, because after this he just leaves. Eventually, Lonnie and the rest of the 110 gang find the Chameleon, and once they learn about Otto's secret laboratory and its location, they plan to head there to settle the score. Norman goes to gloat in Otto's face while the latter is in prison that he was the one responsible for his arrest, and also that he now owns all of his illegal tech. Tech that is currently in the process of being stolen by the gang that Lonnie is a part of, before the attempt was stopped by Spider-Man. And then the attempted stopping of the attempt was stopped by the Scorpion and his own gang. As the second gang fight ensues, the rematch between Spider-Man and Scorpion begins. However, while fighting each other, Lonnie accidentally knocks over a canister of strange blue gas inside the truck and he is inhaling it. So it turns out that whatever he was exposed to made his skin hard as stone, and now Spider-Man and Tombstone are working together to stop the Scorpion. It doesn't happen. After seeing Tombstone get crushed by some beams, Spider-Man stops holding back and attacks the Scorpion with full force, only to be stopped by Tombstone, who reminds Spider-Man not to be like Scorpion. So it turns out that Norman Osborn had all of the interns working in their own respective fields for the last few episodes, because he knew they would be able to create a gateway to interstellar travel by using their own inventions and research. Before he can initiate his experiment and open the gateway, however, Doctor Strange appears and tells Norman that he will stop their experiment himself. It doesn't happen. What comes out of the gateway is the alien from before, and it attacks Doctor Strange until Spider-Man comes in to help him fight. So, it turns out that the fight we saw in episode 1 was actually something that happened in the future. Also, the origin of Spider-Man operates on the grandfather paradox logic in this universe as a result. Strange and Spider-Man are able to shut down the portal, but not before a piece of the alien manages to get through, perhaps hinting at a potential Venom storyline later. But not just the Venom storyline is being set up at this point. The Tombstone story, the Daredevil storyline, and also perhaps something with the Sinister Six, or at the very least a proper Doc Ock. But most of all, that Peter's dad is alive and in jail. However, no matter what comes his way, Spider-Man is confident that he can handle it. And that's it. that's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, Season 1. There was a lot that happened in the show, and a lot that was done really well, but what I think the show has done well most of all was the writing of its characters. From the old faces like Peter, Norman, and Harry, to the new ones like Pearl and Nico, this show does an exceptional job of utilizing its characters, for the most part. What I really love about the character dynamics is that it seems they took the best parts of the Spectacular Spider-Man and Iron Man Armored Adventures and put them into one show. To be more specific, the dynamic between Tony Stark and Jean Conn in Season 1 seems to be almost identical to the way things are between Peter Parker and Lonnie Lincoln, two super smart friends that hide secrets from each other while unknowingly engaging in activities via their alter egos that subsequently impact each other in their own civilian lives. Lonnie Lincoln is presented as such a wonderfully written, tragic character. You want him to do better and be better. He even talked about becoming a scientist in the first episode, and not just relying on his football skills to carry him in life. But with everything that has happened to him so far, all he can do is fall deeper into the criminal underworld that he immersed himself into, just to save his brother from taking up the mantle that he has embraced in his place. What's really unfortunate is that he spent his entire life building himself up to be the exact opposite of what everyone on the outside perceives him to be, only to fit that exact same mold in the end because of the circumstances of his life and also because of his family. Norman Osborn as a mentor to Peter Parker works so great over Tony Stark, and that's because of two words: Green Goblin. We don't know when, and we don't know how, but we know that Green Goblin has always been Spider-Man's most iconic villain, which means it's only a matter of time before we finally see them come to a head and face off. However, the stakes for a clash between these two will be even higher than any Spider-Man show we have seen so far, because Norman, pre-Goblin, already knows who Spider-Man and everyone close to him is. The setups are done so well with the characters, and I am looking forward to how they do their payoffs going forward. If there was one character I thought was useless, it would have to be Pearl. She is introduced as a love interest for Peter, and that after she starts dating Lonnie, sweet mother of pearl, does she not do anything else of real importance for the remainder of the first season. Oh, but Bill, she drove Lonnie home when he got a call from his mom. Alright, let's be real here. If Lonnie needed to, he could have literally asked anyone else or called an Uber, and the end result would be exactly the same. Outside of the uselessness that was Pearl, it's an easy 4.5 out of 5 character score for me. Story and plot. What is the plot of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man? Basically, it's the origin story of Spider-Man that ends up providing you with an origin story for Spider-Man. I'll be honest, I had a feeling the first scene was a fight from the future when I saw episode 1, then I figured out the time travel gimmick during episode 9, based on the premise that it would be stupid to have Doctor Strange show up in the first episode and then never again, which means that he would have to appear in the very last episode since he hasn't appeared anywhere from episodes 1 through 9, and he is going to use the time stone because that's like his whole shtick. But on a serious note, the pacing of the actual plot centers around setting up all these fun and colorful villains for Spider-Man to fight in Season 2. If anything, the plotline that is the most interesting is probably the Tombstone origin rather than the Spider-Man origin. Like I said before, it seems like they took the best parts of the Spectacular Spider-Man, which remember had Tombstone as a central antagonist, and Iron Man Armored Adventures, which had a close friend of Stark as the central antagonist, and made something incredible. The narrative progression of enemies for Spider-Man to fight is actually something that's enjoyable to see. He is constantly learning from his mistakes and trying to improve where he can, but even with all of his talents, he still falls short on some of the minor things, and it's great to see. As much as he wants to do it on his own, he is reminded constantly that he needs the help of others because sometimes he bites off more than he can chew. However, he doesn't depend on others, but simply allows them to complement his efforts. And like I said before, the Tombstone plotline is just so enjoyable because of how real it all feels. I am going to make a video discussing why this show gets it right where Velma gets it wrong. So if you are interested in that, be sure to tune in for that video. But tangent aside, this plot is a solid 4 out of 5. Rewatchability and recommendability. Is your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man worth rewatching? Yes. If The Spectacular Spider-Man was a shonen anime, Neighborhood Spider-Man would be a seinen anime. And you should know by now how I feel about seinen anime. This show makes me wish I could watch it at 9 AM on a Saturday morning with a bowl of cereal in my lap, because it's just so much fun. And to anyone complaining about the diverse cast, Nico was literally around since 2003, and her character is the exact same here as it was there. If you want to see a show that has bad palette-swapped characters, go watch my videos on Velma, because this show is not that in the slightest. Spider-Man is one of my favorite superheroes, and this show is one that I think that everyone should give a watch, honestly. Also, I really like the 3D CGI animation, but that's mainly because Iron Man Armored Adventures did it first, and like I said before, this show has so many parallels to that one, it's honestly insane. It scores a 4.5 out of 5 for me. And lastly, the finale. A finale can either make or break your piece of media, so how does your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man hold up? At first, I would have said it was pretty okay. My biggest gripe is that Spider-Man's origin is contingent on the grandfather paradox, which I thought was really stupid and still do, so I didn't want to give it anything higher than a 3. Until we start seeing more information about the way that things are developing. All of the setups that are going to be explored later makes for such excellent cliffhangers, but perhaps the most interesting thing of all is that Peter's father is not only alive, but in jail. If you have watched my Uzumaki video, you'll recall me saying that the ending leaves the viewer with more questions than answers, and not in a good way. This right here, this is the right way to leave you with more questions than answers. Easy 4 out of 5. All of these scores together give your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man a final average of 4.25 stars out of 5. When I'm having a lazy Saturday, this is one of the shows that I want to put on and try to feel like I'm 15 again. I had a lot of fun with this show, and I'm very glad that I got the chance to watch it and talk about it. I genuinely believe that if you hated this show, you literally did not watch this show. And as I said before, I'm thinking about doing a video comparing this show to Velma. So, if you want to see me rip Velma apart for the 3rd time in a row, or if you just want to hear my voice, you have that video to look forward to. It seems like every time I say I'm gonna upload more content consistently, something happens to stop that from occurring. So instead of saying that, I will just say that I'm very excited for this new wave of content I have planned, and I hope that you all will stick around with me as I continue to put more of it out for you. But at the end of the day, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you want to see more media analysis, you can click the playlist on the right, or if you just want to see my most recent video, you can check out this video on the left. However, that's where I'm going to leave off for now. Thank you for staying until the end of the video, and a big thank you to all 1,378 people who bought tickets to the Inviso Bill show. Tell me what you thought about this video, and what you want to see me talk about next time. But, until that next time arrives, I'm Inviso Bill, and that's all for my spill. Like, comment, hit subscribe. I look forward to when I'll see you next time.